First dungeon Ointera began to sweat. His boss was not going to tell him he had to go in there, right? Boss? Desiree finally turned to look at Ointera and gave him a wide, scaly grin. We are going in since we need to figure out what level dungeon it is. From the surrounding area, I'd say it is around level on-ish. We will be okay as long as we take our time. After all, we need to level up, and if this works like the dungeons I know of, then we can do this one dungeon over and over until we all reach the proper level. Plus, we need to kill elite mobs. Elites only appear in dungeons or around them, but I do not see any elites here now, do you? Ointera wanted to argue, but he could find no fault in anything his boss said. He sighed and looked at the dungeon, which still sent shivers down his spine. He then took a deep breath before slowly letting it out. He held up his spear and said, "T then, let's do it." Good. Remember though, we are checking first. Do not attack anything unless you are attacked first. If they are around the level range I stated, then we will try to pull one at a time. I will be the main tank. I will need you all to keep me healed with first aid, just like we practiced. Desiree had already trained them on teamwork. Each one of them knew how to play their roles quite well. She was the main tank, and the rest were DPS. Ointera was their main healer since she, for some reason, had a bigger mana pool than the others. Understood. Everyone replied in unison. Desiree was their boss, so even if they were a little reluctant, they would still follow her orders. Desiree nodded before taking a deep breath and pushing the door to the dungeon open. She felt as if she passed through some kind of thick film as she stepped into the dungeon. At the same time, a notification appeared above her head. Discovered the secluded cave experience points gained. Seeing that she got experience points just for entering the cave made Desiree happy. She quickly looked around to see that she was now in a dimly lit mossy cave. There were torches lining the walls, which would never be possible if there was not some kind of special trick to this entire place. The pigmen all stood behind her with their weapons at the ready. Each one was very nervous, except Desiree, who was trying to analyze everything. We need to go slow. We do not know if these dungeons have traps or not. Desiree was trying to take everything into consideration. As long as they were not caught in a monster trap with hundreds of monsters or hit by any of the traps themselves, they should be able to clear the dungeon. She did hope to maybe find some drops if drops were a thing in dungeons. Taking a deep breath, Desiree decided it was now time to move. She slowly made her way forward. To be safe, she would test the area in front of her with rocks from the cave floor. She did not know if anything was able to sense movement or not. The first area seemed like a safety zone. There were no monsters in sight. But when they came to a passage that narrowed out leading to the next area, Desiree went fully on guard. The passage was not long and was only 2 Desiree wide. They slowly made their way down until they came to the exit that opened up to the next room. This is where Desiree came to a full halt. She motioned to her companions to stay quiet and stay there before looking around and whispering over and over again. She was able to pick up 3 sources that were monsters. Iliate, Night Snake level, 8 monster rank, E elemental affinity, dark HP, 600 MP. 100 Desiree snorted in annoyance. The damn snake had more health than her. But she was lucky it was an elite. This meant she could easily clear one of her evolution requirements. She slowly backed up, forcing the pigmen to follow suit before sitting down in the cave. From what I can tell, there are 3 level 8 elite snakes called Night snakes. They are ranky monsters. Their health is at 600 HP, and their mana is at 100 MP. I have no idea about their defenses, or anything like that, but they are aligned with the dark element. The elemental affinity was something new, thanks to her leveling up appraisal. It helped a lot to understand the alignment of the monsters you are killing, since this can help take advantage of a weakness. All elements had opposing sides, after all. Although, the fact that it took longer to get good at certain spells did not help if you were not aligned with them either. So, it made things much more difficult to go around casting every type of element as if you were a god. But Desiree did plan to slowly get used to the other elements as time went on, but would keep her current ice element as her main element. Since none of us are of the light element, we will have a bit of a tougher fight. I will try to lure one over to kill. But be ready for 2 or 3. We will use the narrow passage to our advantage if we get more than one. I will try to keep them both on me, though. Since their plan was set, Desiree moved back into the room. Her first target was the elite night snake to the right, since it was farthest away from the others. Era and the other pigmen all waited at the designated spot where they would fight. Although the room was rather dark, Desiree's dragon eyes could easily see what was going on around her. Sadly, it was only her that could see well. The pigmen still had a hard time seeing into the darker sections of the cave. But even for Desiree, who could see well in the dark, seeing the black night snakes in the darkness was no easy feat, which was why she used appraisal to find out what was around. She quickly and quietly made her way over to the lone night snake and raised her claws. Ice arrow. A blue and white ball of ice formed in front of her hand, before slowly extending out into the shape of an arrow and flying forward. It flew through the cave silently until it smashed into the side of the head of the night snake. The night snake turned its head with narrowed eyes as it hissed and looked at Desiree. It did not hesitate in the slightest to chase after the blue thing that just smacked it with some kind of rock. Desiree, on the other hand, was already backpedaling, but not too fast, since she did not want to lose aggro if it was even possible to do so. But since things were more and more like a game by the second, she couldn't help but feel like it was. She was also keeping an eye on the other night snakes. Luckily, there was no movement as of yet. From the information she was seeing, she had done 30 points of damage from that one attack and used 5 MP to cast the spell. This left her with 415 MP. She would need to attack it 90 more times to kill it. She could easily do that while killing the night snake, but that would not give her companions the experience they need to fight elites. Now that she had those who were fighting at her side and were part of her team, she could not just do everything herself. She did not wish to fight alone either. While it might make her seem more powerful, what would happen if she was alone and accidentally pulled 3 or 4 monsters at a time? She would definitely end up dead if she could not run away. Having Ointera and the others helping her as she made her way toward her goal was very important. She had to fight as a team in order to defeat monsters safely. The night snake began picking up speed as it rushed toward Desiree. Its body slithered back and forth in between the rocks, protruding out of the cave floor. Desiree finally turned around to start running normally. She raised her paw and extended one finger towards Ointera to indicate that only one monster was incoming. Ointera and his kin were nervous, but also determined. They wanted to be of help to their boss, who had done so much to help them grow stronger. They were taking steps to become the first pigmen to evolve. There had never been any record of a pigman who had evolved before, so this was the first time. Attack once our boss reaches us. Remember what she said. We will fight near the entrance to stay away from other mobs, and to also allow us a quick escape if need be. If you get hurt, quickly cast first aid on yourself and back up until you are ready to fight again. If someone ends up dying, do not lose your cool. Keep fighting in formation. Our job is to keep attacking and reduce its HP until it hits 0. Ointera called out his orders, making his companions all nod. Their eyes went from being nervous to looking very serious. It seemed they did not want to fail on the first monster. As soon as Desiree arrived at the group, she skidded to a halt, turned around, and blasted a few more ice arrows at the night snake. She had to keep its attention on her. Ointera and the rest did not have high HP, nor did they have much defense, but she did. The night snake was enraged once more after being hit so many times. It darted at Desiree, ignoring the little piggies at its side. Little did it realize that this was going to be a fatal mistake. While the night snake was focused on trying to kill the one who kept hitting it in the head with frozen rocks, the pigmen flanked it from both sides and then began stabbing it with their stone spears. The night snake's HP was quickly falling. Desiree was launching ice arrows at it, and when it attacked her, she would dodge, and then attack it with her own claws, leaving large gashes on its head. No matter how much damage the pigmen were doing, her damage was just that much higher. You defeated Elite Night Snake. Experience points gained. Desiree smiled as she walked over to the night snake and sent it into her inventory. But when she did this, she was surprised to see that, instead of white names, the items had green names. Oh, a higher quality? Is it because it is an elite? Although she was curious, something caught her eye, drawing her attention. A few shiny objects were lying on the ground where the night snake once was. This is? Desiree asked as she looked at the shiny circular objects on the ground. While she was asking what it was, she pretty much already knew what it was. Gold coins. They are the currency of our world. They can be used all over the world no matter the race, which makes trade much easier, Ointera explained. I see, so we can just save them then. Desiree sighed and put the shiny coins in her inventory. They did not take up a slot, but instead the 0 she had at the bottom suddenly shot up, showing she now had 10 gold. Slowly and steadily, Desiree and her group made their way through the dungeon. Desiree's level shot up 2 times, making her level 13. Name: Desiree Harris. Race: Ice Draggling. Age: 14. Level: 13. Monster rank: F. Evolution requirements: reach level 20. HP: 860, 860, 880. 580. Elemental affinity: Ice immunity. LVM max. Appraisal 2. First aid: O222 spark. Leer2 Tlon cleanse. LL1 drink. 1 take. Drink. VL1. Professions: weapon crafting. AVL2 armor crafting. Even the elite requirement on her evolution requirements had disappeared. She found elite monsters, even ones of a lower level, were good experience. While they might have more HP and MP as well as hitting harder, they were still easy to pull and could easily be defeated through teamwork with her as the tank. They knew first aid would not heal all that much to begin with, so any time they saw Desiree's health bar drop to 70%, they would heal her almost as if they were scripted robots. I think that is it. Desiree pursed her lips. Did we miss a turn? She could have sworn they checked the entire dungeon. Boss, from what I know, dungeon boss rooms only appear when the whole dungeon is clear of monsters. If this was truly the last monster, then we need to look around for the door, Ointera explained. Alright then, let's backtrack. Follow the map, and when we find the boss room, mark it down. Desiree still had someone map out the dungeon. By having this map, they could run this dungeon a few times. Ointera said dungeons reset every 24 hours, so they could scout around for a day, and then the day after do the dungeon again to get everyone's levels up. She was actually hoping to find a higher level dungeon as well. She had gotten a lot of gold and green crafting materials. She hoped to make some new armor when she got back to her base camp. One thing she was really excited about was the tin and copper she had been farming as well. She had enough to make a few weapons for all of them. Stone spears and stone daggers did not work all that well and would chip. If it was not for the fact that she had made a few tips for each spear and dagger that she had crafted, some of the pigmen would have long been left without a weapon. With no other choice, the group backtracked through the dungeon until they finally found a door on the side wall of the second room of the dungeon. The door was nothing out of the ordinary, from what Desiree would expect from a dungeon boss room door. Large arched double doors with monsters and symbols engraved throughout. Well, according to the rules of dungeons that I know of, the boss should be a snake since that is basically all we have been fighting. Desiree hoped the boss would not be too hard. She had to think of the safety of everyone, including herself. According to what I know, this is correct, Ointera replied. Okay, then let's stop and see what skills we can get. Ointera, you said a few magic spells had shown up, correct? Desiree knew magic would be best to quickly take a boss down unless it had some kind of high magic resistance. Yes, all of us have access to Fireball and Rock Arrow, Ointera answered. Then use your points on that, and then upgrade any combat skills you have. At the start of the fight, let me battle the boss for a few minutes to get enough damage ramped up on it. Ointera and the rest were all level 9 now. Ointera was almost level 10. They had all leveled up quickly, but that leveling was starting to slow. While the pigmen were excitedly getting their first true attack spells, Desiree began going through her list, looking for something for her to buy. She kept scrolling through her list until she spotted something interesting. Healing Snow? Healing Snow element ice heals everyone within 32 feet for 100 points. Mana cost 20 an ice healing spell. Desiree smiled. It was not even a single cast spell, but an AOA, area of effect, healing spell. Cost 10 skill points as well. This meant she could cast this spell when she saw people getting low, with no way of healing themselves. She took a deep breath. Alright, I will spend 10 points on this, and try to up a few more skills. In the end, Desiree could only level up one skill, and that was the skill she had just purchased, Healing Snow. The healing, along with her affinity, went up to 250 HP per cast. Name, Desiree Harris Race, I struggling age, 14 level, 13 monster rank. F evolution requirements, reach level 20 HP, 860, 868, 58, Otis, 800. Oh, Ease immunity, IVL max, Appraisal, first aid, AL2 first 2FR, 2AATAO2, Pale Spark, 1 clowns, AL1 drink, OAL1 dick, BAL1. Dice Arrowville 2, Futureball 1, Detection, Furball 1 are detects. Healing Snow, ELA 2. She just needed to watch her mana closely. Because if she used her new healing spell too many times, it would drain her MP fast. Desiree looked over at the others and asked, Ready? Boss, no matter what happens, we will follow you. Ointera had gained a lot of confidence since they started the dungeon. The same went for his companions. They each learn how to kill elite monsters. This was something that only those privileged enough to cast magic could do, and now they were in this class of magic users. Then let's do this. Desiree pushed open the door and walked in with Ointera, and the rest following closely behind. The room was dark, which was normal for any dungeon boss room that Desiree had gone into. They had only taken a few steps into the boss room when the sound of clapping was suddenly heard. Good job. And welcome. The entire room suddenly lit up, as if it was the light of day, causing everyone to shield their eyes. As they slowly adjusted to the new brightness, they saw a man in a black cloak standing not too far away. Desiree narrowed her eyes as she looked at the man. She could only see the outline of his chin since he had his head slightly lowered, but she felt like she might know this person, although she is not sure who it was, or why she felt like this. The cloaked man's eyes flashed as he looked at Desiree before clapping his hands once more. I cannot tell you who I am, but I can say this. To be the first on a world that has just been turned to complete a dungeon shows that you all have promise. Although, to see pigmen from the boundary world here is very promising. The cloaked man sat down on a stone block that rose up from the floor and crossed one leg over the other as he held his hands in his lap. Please take a seat. I believe you all are wondering why things are the way they are. Am I correct? Desiree looked at the cloaked man with caution. Do I know you? Desiree's question made the cloaked man's eyes flash once more. He couldn't help but let out a sigh before saying, I can only tell you what is going on and nothing more. He did not deny nor agree to anything, making Desiree purse her scaly lips. Appraisal system message, cannot be appraised. Clicking her tongue, she sighed and gave in. She felt that even if this man wanted to kill them, he could any time. She did not even think they could escape. Sighing once more, she turned to Ointera and the rest and waved for them to lower their weapons. Let's go sit. We need to know what is going on. And since he is here, it means he is part of all of this. The group walked over and went to sit down. Normally the boss door would have slammed shut behind them, but it was still wide open. Desiree was about to sit fully when a stone block in the shape of a chair rose up from the ground. The cloaked man pointed to the chair and said, those of the dragon race should be treated with more respect. Desiree ignored the chair and sat down on the floor in front of it. I am no different from Ointera and the rest. If they sit on the floor, so shall I. The man's lips curled up as he mumbled, still the same. He sighed, and then stood up himself before sitting on the floor as well. Since that is the case, then I too will sit on the ground. Desiree grinned slightly, seeing this. She found the man to be rather strange. So what is it you want to tell us? Every world has another world that exists beside it, the cloaked man began. These worlds run on different timelines and laws. One world could be a world of technology, while another could be a world of magic, or a world with nothing on it whatsoever. Everything is based on what happens during those timelines that change the world compared to its clone. Think of it as parallel worlds. Sometimes these worlds are forcefully brought together. Some will merge into the other, or they will clip each other, causing catastrophic events. Hence, what happened to this world? Normally, it would only cause natural disasters, but there are times when the worlds will partially merge. Beings from both worlds will begin to appear. But now here is when things get complicated. Cloaked man sighed as he looked at the world around him. Your world and the other world are in a strange state. Those that disappeared were consumed by this world and turned into mana that now fills this world, while monsters and mana from the other world slowly seep into this world. They are still in the middle of merging. Soon this world may expand to 2 or 3 times its current size. The cloaked man's gaze never left Desiree as he wanted to see her reaction to all of this information. After all, he had come here for only one purpose only. He only had a limited time and had to pull strings to come to this place. He could not come back for some time. So this merger caused all of this. Desiree scratched her head. She still was unsure about a lot of things. Then what about my body? I was originally human. This is something that happens. As I said, your world split at some point, so the part of the DNA hidden deep within you was the cause of the transformation, since mana will bring out the old DNA and rewrite your own DNA, But don't worry, all races have a humanoid form. Dragons are known to be able to transform back and forth as well. Keep leveling and growing stronger. You'll be able to do more than just transform, but even soar through the sky. The cloaked man wanted Desiree to keep growing stronger. She had to protect herself. I will keep working hard. Desiree sighed once more. She had no choice but to work hard. She still had to get to where her father and friends were. She wondered how long that would take. Good. I must leave. The rewards for this level will be given as if you had defeated the boss of this dungeon. Tell those you come across about the merger. This is the only thing I ask. And Arya, stay safe. The cloaked man looked Desiree straight in the eye as he called her Arya. Desiree was quite confused. She was not stupid. She knew he was talking to her, but she did not know why he called her Arya. She wanted to ask, but he soon disappeared. A stack of items fell to the floor, and 2 notifications popped up in front of her. You defeated a dungeon boss. Vanishing Snake King experience points gained. Level up. Level up. She had reached level 15 and gained 10 more skill points. She was happy about this, but also felt things were still strange. She wondered just how much more the world would change. Would the current world she was in change dramatically to where she would not recognize it anymore? Why did that man seem to know her, and for some reason, deep down, she felt as if she knew who he was? Let's check the loot. Desiree decided to put her thoughts on hold. She had no way of answering anything. She could only concentrate on gaining 5 more levels. She walked over to find gold coins on the ground, along with some armor that was blue-colored and more materials. But these materials were also blue-colored. She picked them all up and put them away. The armor was a blue-quality armor, but was also metal. Vanishing King's chest armor level requirement, 13 HP, 30. Defense 50. Desiree looked at the armor and wondered how anyone was supposed to wear this. She went to stick it into her inventory when another system notification appeared. Notification, equipment window unlocked. Desiree looked at her menu and saw that it was indeed unlocked. She opened the equipment menu and saw a bunch of generic equipment slots, some of which were filled with the armor she put on. She wondered why it suddenly became accessible. Is it because it's a drop item? Desiree did not know, but she hoped this would make making armor easier for her later on. She equipped her new armor, and with a flash of light, her old armor came off, and her new armor went on. She looked down at herself and found that the armor really fit her perfectly. There was no tightness around anything. Even her wings had 2 slots they were poking out of. Boss! Your armor looks amazing, Tara praised. None of the pigmen were mad that Desiree. After all, if not for her, they would not have had the chance to even complete a dungeon and level up. She took the brunt of all the damage and was always making sure none of them got hurt. Thanks. Although I wish I had gotten the equipment menu sooner. Could have saved time and materials on armor for myself. Desiree sighed at the thought of the wasted materials, but now she did have better quality materials, so she could make much better equipment for the pigmen. Let's head back. We will rest and spend a few days making new armor and weapons. After that, we will search for a higher level dungeon. Yeah. The pigmen all shouted at the same time, a big difference from when they first entered this place. The group did not have to go far to leave the dungeon. When they did, it was dark out. They had long lost track of how long they had been in the dungeon. They were all energetic and excited when they returned to camp to find it still intact. It was just that not far away, a set of eyes was watching them as they gathered around the campfire. Toblins the next day, Desiree got to work on crafting. She wanted to get everyone new armor and weapons as soon as possible. Luckily, the pigmen had all gained more abilities as well. She started off by working on their spears. She did not think they should be switching weapons just yet. They could do that in their free time. For now, she wanted them to keep going with what they were comfortable with. While Desiree was working, Tara walked over and whispered to her. Desiree lifted her head and looked at Tara and narrowed her eyes. Drag them out. On it, boss! Tara did not waste even a second as he raised his paw up to give the signal. Not even half a second later, a yell came from the tree line not far away. A very familiar voice could be heard. Let go of me. You are nothing but walking sticks of bacon. Tara and Oinkiera both walked out of the bush holding a long ear each, a gray rabbit with a small horn and 2 long ears that were gripped by 2 pigmen dangled in the air, kicking and screaming. Desiree's eyes narrowed. What do you want, Jake? Disa. Tell these things to let me go. Jake yelled out. Jake had actually survived it all. He was a coward, so he hid. He had stumbled upon a goblin that was half dead. It attacked him, and in his panic he ended up killing it without meaning to. He only remembered blacking out from the pain of evolution, and then waking up as a rabbit. Since then he had been scavenging where he could. He had only accidentally stumbled upon Desiree the previous day when he saw her walking through the forest. Tara looked at his boss and saw her shake her head no, so he signaled for the others to keep a tight grip on the rabbit. Desiree snorted before saying, Jake, why are you here? I think after everything that you said last time, you and I are no longer friends. Deza, are you still mad? I only said a few things in a fit of anger. I will apologize if you want. So tell these bastards to let go of me. Jake still did not seem to understand. He knew deep down that if Desiree was not here, he would be shaking in his fur, not willing to say a word, hoping he would be able to escape. Jake, I think you are not understanding something. You are yelling at my friends and calling them names. Who the hell are you to ask me for a favor? Last time you freaked out, thinking I was trying to get you killed. Now you are even giving me a half-assed apology like I would take it to heart. From the beginning to the end, you only want to seem superior. I mean, how can you be superior when you are a damn rabbit? Any one of my friends here can kill you in an instant. But you still want to act all high and mighty. Desiree snorted and stood up. She put down the half-finished spear tip in her hand and walked over to him. Her eyes turned cold as she said in a low voice, "I will let you go this once on account that we used to be friends, but I will say this now. If you even show up once in front of me again, I will roast you over a fire and eat you for dinner." Wah. Jake's eyes grew big. He looked like a scared rabbit. You wouldn't dare eat me. I used to be. Before he could finish, he felt something slice into his arm. He looked at the claw that was pulling back and looked up at Desiree, who began licking the blood off of it. "Jake, did you forget? I am a dragon. I am not human, nor are you. You are a rabbit, and a fat one at that. I can easily shove a stick in one end and out the other to slowly roast you over a fire. Your hide will make Ointera a new pair of socks. I can even make a toothpick out of your horn." The more Desiree said, the more the gray fur on Jake's body began to turn white. He realized that she was not kidding. She would really eat him. "I get it. I will not show up in front of you again." Jake could only bite his lip and yell this out. Desiree motioned with her head and Jake was finally set free. "Leave before you make me change my mind. It just so happens we have yet to decide on dinner." Jake quickly turned and ran away. Off in the distance, Desiree heard, "You will regret this. Boss, this." It is better to deal with those kinds of people before they come back after growing in strength. Ointera was worried. He did not know if the rabbit would somehow evolve and become powerful. "Ointera, what race am I?" Desiree asked. "Ah." Ointera rubbed his nose and oinked a few times. "Huh, boss, I was worried for nothing. But he was fat. If you want rabbit, I will not stop you, but I want the materials." Desiree could care less if Jake lived or died. So if Ointera wanted to hunt Jake, he could. "Then I will go try to find it." Ointera turned and ran off. He was quickly followed by 2 others. Desiree chuckled as she went back to working on the equipment. She hoped to reach level 3 in armor and weapon crafting in the next few days. Not long later, Ointera came back with the other pigmen with a sullen face. "Who knew rabbits were so quick?" Desiree chuckled as she finished the first spear. "Not bad." She turned and looked at Ointera and tilted her head. "No rabbit?" "Boss, you have no idea. Once that rabbit thing saw us, it cursed us a new one before running as fast as possible." Desiree laughed out loud as she handed him the spear in her hand. "This is called the Vanishing Spear. Vanishing Spear quality, rare damage, 50-62% chance to vanish from opponent's sight." It was long and bone-colored. This was, of course, since it was all made out of a bone from the Vanishing Team boss. She did not plan to just make the one either. She had enough to make all the pigmen spears. She also planned to use the fangs to make arrowheads. She found daggers were of no use to her, so she planned to make arrows and a bow using the materials on hand. She was sure she had enough materials, and if she made something out of the scope of her current crafting system, she could earn more experience towards her level, it seemed. The reason why she was doing a bow was mainly because of its ability to do things like ice arrows with lower mana cost. She had ice element mana. If she infused an object with her mana, she noticed that it would freeze over, and if enough mana was injected into the object, anything the object touched would start to freeze as well. She found that, With half the mana cost of an ice arrow, it was quite handy for times when she was out of mana and needed to slow an enemy to escape. This, in the long run, would give her another trump card for survival, as well as another means of pulling enemies. Since she knew in the foreseeable future she would be the tank of her party, she wanted to have as many manaless options as possible, so she could conserve them for when mana was truly needed. A few days passed, and Desiree had finished all the armor, as well as her bow and arrows, and more spears. Both her armor crafting and weapon crafting jumped to level 3. Currently, she was receiving a report from Ointera about some new sightings around their camp. So goblins? They seem to be a variant, Ointera began. There are 2 variants of goblins. The green-skinned goblins, who can only produce male offspring, so they need to find women to impregnate. And then there are the gray-skinned goblins, who are able to give birth to males and females and are much more civilized. They like to call themselves toblins. Toblins, huh? Desiree pursed her scaly lips. She wondered why they decided on such a stupid name. So are they just hunting, or are they looking to attack us? I am not sure. We have only been keeping an eye on them, and have not made contact as of yet. We did not report it until now since we wanted to see if they would leave on their own, Ointera replied. From now on, tell me right away if there are other races hanging around. Especially goblin-type races. Desiree hated goblins, but these were not goblins but toblins. Let's make contact. I want to know what they are doing. If they are enemies, we will kill them. If they are friendly, we will welcome them. Understood, boss. Ointera did not know much about the Toblins since they would always stay away from other races. But he figured this was due to the prejudice that others had against goblins in general. Desiree had Ointera follow her. Ointera already said they were low level, so there was no need for her to bring a bunch of people along. When they arrived, the Toblins who were pushing their wooden spears in the bushes all quickly turned around and pointed them at Desiree and Ointera. Put them down. We mean you no harm. How can we trust other races? A female Toblin spoke up. She was very wary of both Desiree and Ointera. As you can see, we do not have our weapons drawn. We just came to check to see if you plan to be our enemy or not. Desiree was honest. She was new to this diplomacy thing. The Toblin girl looked at Desiree, and then at Ointera, and took a step back. I still cannot trust you. But I can say that we have come in search of a prisoner that had escaped. Prisoner? Desiree's brow furrowed. What did they look like? Grey fur, long ears, and a short horn on their head. The Toblin girl did not hide anything. That damn rabbit. Ointera gritted his teeth. He was fat and juicy and escaped. Are you still on about that? Desiree asked. She had never seen a pig throw a fit over rabbit meat before. Why wouldn't I be? Boss, if you cooked it, just imagine how good it would have tasted. Ointera loved the meat that Desiree cooked. Oh. Desiree nodded. She also felt that Jake would have tasted good, slowly roasted with some peanut oil and some seasonings. She even had some mushrooms and other vegetables that she could have sautéed and stuffed in him. All right, you win. So you have seen it? The female Toblin asked. She was starting to think these people were not too bad. Yes, but he escaped, Desiree replied. Let's head to my camp. We can talk more there. Desiree and Ointera, along with the Toblins, sat down around the fire. Before we begin, we should probably introduce ourselves. My name is Desiree. Next to me is Ointera. Desiree went on and introduced all the pigmen. My name is Juna. Next to me are my guards, Rintu and Trina. Juna introduced her and the male and female guards at her side. Guards. Desiree tilted her head. If Juna had guards, then she was probably some kind of noble in the Toblin race. Yes. Believe it or not, I am a princess, or was. Now that I am on this world, I am no different from anyone else. I do not know how or why, but we suddenly appeared in this strange place. The air is different, so I know it is not the same world. Juna had keen senses for her race. She was one of the few shamans of the Toblin race. You are not wrong. You are in a different world, but at the same time not. You can think of this world as a different version of yours on a different timeline. Our worlds are slowly merging. In the future, there will be more of your people. So while you are just you now, once the world fully merges, you will see more of your kind. But I feel this world will end up being much more chaotic. Desiree did not even want to think of the wars that would soon start. She was sure there were areas undamaged with powerful military equipment, as well as things hidden underground that could destroy an entire world. Thinking about these things, Desiree wondered if she should stay here or move camp to an area near those areas. But she was afraid that if she did, she would run into someone else later on and end up being shot at. She was not sure how strong the people of the other places were at this time. I can see that. From what I can tell, you are from this world, while the pigmen are from my world. I can smell the difference, Juna sighed. She wondered just what would be happening in the future as well. How many of your people are here at this time? Desiree decided to ask. There was security in numbers after all. If she could get Juna to move her people here, they could slowly build up a fortified base. Then she could leave for a while to check out the area more. There are 20 of us. I was on my way from checking our borders to make sure those goblins and orcs were not trying to set up camps near our village. We were hit with a bright light and found ourselves on a pile of rubble, Juna sighed. She did not want to be here. If that's the case, then if you would like, you can come and join our camp. We have been exploring dungeons nearby and plan to level up more. I want to build a fortified fort here for us to stay in. They do say there is safety in numbers. Desiree was not afraid that Juna and the others would cause an issue. She could easily kill them all if they dared to attack. To have a dragon look out for my kind is strange. You are indeed not from my world. Juna felt funny. Although her skin was grey, she still looked like her kind's counterparts. Dragons would look down on her kind and put them in the same lot as the goblins. While they would not be actively hunted, if they appeared they would be attacked. She had long gotten used to the discrimination. As long as you are not like goblins, I am okay with you and your people staying here. Oingtir and the others will also not treat you any differently, either. You will be treated with respect here. Desiree understood from what Oingtir told her that Toblins were always looked down on. She hoped to change this. As Boss said, we will not treat you badly. As long as you do not attack us, we will show you the same respect you show us. Oingtera decided to speak up. He understood his boss wanted Juna and the others to come here. He also felt this was a good idea. They had too few people here. Juna hesitated for a moment before looking at her guards. The female guard Trina leaned over and whispered into her ear. Juna nodded before turning to Desiree and asking, "If we feel threatened at all, will you allow us to leave freely?" "Of course. I am not trying to hold anyone hostage. This is just a request. I feel it will be good if we can start a small community here and grow stronger together," Desiree answered. "Then we will accept your offer. My camp is about 3 hours from here. We will return first and then come back. But if you do see that long-eared rabbit again, please do capture it. It tried to steal our food supplies 2 days ago. Juna wanted to cook the stupid rabbit. It cursed at them as it ran away. She could not let it off." "All right. I will be sure to hand it over to you as soon as I see it again," Desiree sighed. It seemed Jake had grown bold since he left. But then again, in order to live this long until now, he would have had to muster up some courage. It seemed him going off on his own was for his own good. It's just too bad that he was still not very smart. Juna and her guards left quickly to get things settled on their end. Ointera scratched his head and asked, "Boss, are you sure this is okay? I mean, if things go as we were told, if we have certain races under our care, we might end up being targeted as well. That is why we need to get as strong as possible before that happens. But no matter what, Ointera, those we befriend we will not leave behind unless they betray us. Never betray others just because someone is putting pressure on you." Desiree hated it when people did that. She hated bullying altogether. That was why she put up with Jake for so long. She would have done her best to keep him alive no matter what. But he never stopped. Ointera quickly waved his hands back and forth. "Don't worry, boss. I would never turn my back on you or those you deem as friends. We have already devoted ourselves to following you. You do not need to devote anything," Desiree chuckled. "Anyway, let's get things ready. We will all help in building new shelters." They had a lot to do. Building 20 more shelters would take time, but with their levels much higher than before, and their strength and stamina much higher, they were easily running around with huge slabs of concrete walls and stacking them on top of one another, creating small huts quite quickly. In just 2 hours, they had already built 10 new stone huts. While they were nothing fancy, they were at least a shelter. When Juna and her kin came over, they were surprised to see so many new stone huts already built. "You did so much in such a short time. We will have 10 more huts done soon. You and your people can start settling in." Desiree was still overseeing things, so she could not talk at this time. She wanted to get these huts done, and then she wanted to start building a stone wall that was at least 10 feet high. If they got more people joining them later, then that was fine. Juna did not wish to stand around doing nothing while everyone else worked. She quickly had someone settle in her people, 1 per person per hut. She sent the rest to start helping build. While they were much weaker, they could still move small stones. With the extra hands, they were able to finish the last 10 huts in just under an hour. Everyone sat around the fire and ate a meal together for the first time. Ointera took the stage. He had been acting more and more like a leader since Desiree first met him. She guessed it was due to him finally leveling up. "I want to take a moment and welcome our new brothers and sisters. We may be of different races, but I hope we can all get along and work together. Boss has helped us all, and I hope you can help Boss in return, just as we try to do every day." Ointera raised his cup of juice that Desiree had poured everyone with a big smile. Everyone else did the same before letting out cheers. The pigmen and toblins began to mingle and quickly became friends. Desiree smiled seeing this. While toblins looked like goblins, they were not bad. She did not understand why they were so looked down upon. Of course, she would keep a watchful eye, but she did not sense anything wrong with how things were at this time. Miss Dragon. Juna walked over and bowed her head slightly. She was a little nervous to be talking with a dragon. Just Isa is fine. Or you can call me boss like the others. Although I have no idea why they call me that. Desiree rubbed her snout. Then I will call you like the rest. Juna felt this was the real way to go. Boss, I know my race will bring you troubles in the future, so if the worlds do merge, then I will leave with my people in order to not cause you any trouble. Juna, do not look down on me as someone who would force a friend out. If you never betray us, and help out as much as you can, then I will never turn my back on you, even if there are those who dare to say your race is bad. I myself do not like goblins. But toblins are different. I will not toss you aside. This I promise. Desiree could only sigh. Things had not even come to that point yet, and Juna was already willing to go into hiding again. Juna did not know how to feel. She was slightly happy, but she did not know if Desiree would change her mind later. For now, she will decide when the time comes. Then feel free to ask me and my people to do anything. For today, just settle in. Tomorrow, Ointera and the rest will be working on building a wall around our little village. I will be working on new gear for you and your people. While it will not be blue gear right away, it will at least be green quality. This is both weapons and armor. I will also bring a few of you on our next dungeon run. We are all trying to reach our first evolution. Desiree explained. I see. Are you really willing to bring me and my people into a dungeon? We are not all that. Juna felt something pressed against her lips. She looked at Desiree in confusion. Ointera and the rest were only level 1 and 2 when I first met them. Now, they are all levels 10 and 11. We will go to the low-level dungeon and work on getting your guys to level 10 first. Then we will be hitting the harder level dungeon once we find one. But before that, we will need to work on a few things to get settled down better. The next morning, Desiree called a meeting with Juna and Ointera to try to plan out a more sustainable village-type situation. So I was thinking we should try to form some kind of farmland and start planting what we can. We need to do more than just forage in the forest. If we eat everything around us, there will be nothing left for us, and we will need to move to another location. This is not very effective if we wish to build a fortified place to live. This is something my clan used to do as well. As you know, my kin, the Toblins are not very strong. We can only fight in numbers, which allowed us to ward off attacks from others, but staying hidden away also made it so we had no choice but to farm as well. We could not move around as a large group all the time. So when it comes to farming, you can leave it to me and my kin. Most of us have the farming skill. Even 2 of my guards have it maxed out. Juna felt this was a very good idea. To take certain plants and then grow them on their own was something her clan had been doing for hundreds of years. Then I will leave this to you. If you need any help, let us know. We should build our wall so that we can alter the size of our land at any time. Desiree used a stick to draw on the ground. We will put our farmland near the walls on the inside. We will dig a few wells near the farmland to make watering easier. We will need irrigation and compost to make sure the land stays fertile. I think we can also catch a few families of weak monsters to raise. This way, We can use their manure to make compost. Their milk is drinkable. We can make many things from that to help with food production like cheeses and other milk-based foods. Desiree began going over her ideas, one by one. Both Juna and Ointera nodded at the things she was saying. All right, we will go with that. We will spend the next week bringing this place into working order. We will first get the wall down. Juna and her kin will then till the land and get ready for planting. During that time, Ointera and his people will go hunting and searching for monsters to raise. They will bring one of the toplins along so they can gather seeds and other items that they will need. I will bring some of the toplins around to kill monsters around the area to get them leveled up so they can get first aid. Does this work for you too? Desiree asked as she looked at Juna and Ointera. Boss, I will follow your orders. You do not need to worry about my opinion. Ointera was very loyal. If Desiree said jump, he would jump. Yes, we will follow your plan, Juna nodded. She was starting to feel that Desiree was quite amazing. All right, we will get started then. Desiree stood up. She patted the dust off her before looking around at the clearing that the others had been working on and smiled. She couldn't help but think to herself, Dad, when I can finally find you, I will be able to show you the new home I have built for us. Desiree did not know where her father and her friends were, but she knew that once she was strong enough, she would go search for them. But she first needed to settle things here and make this a place that could run on its own if she were to leave for a month or so. That day was filled with nothing but wall building. Desiree and the others lugged cement block after cement block around the encampment. They cleared trees and made the area much bigger as well. Compared to before, it looked like the start of a decent-sized village. Ointera had decided to make the wall around the village thicker and wider so that they could get on top of it and keep a lookout. They even made a gate using large logs. With the skills that they had on the pigman side, the log gate actually rose up from the ground using a pulley system. This meant 2 people always had to be on the lookout at all times. While this was a little rough with the lack of higher levels at the time, Desiree felt that once the toplins leveled up as well, it would be no problem for them to help out with gate watch. Desiree did as she promised and took toplins out to level them up, getting almost all of them to level 4 within a week. Juna had her people till the land, and in no time had 3 plots of land set up to plant the seeds they had harvested from the forest. Things were starting to look up as they all began forming a new community together. Everyone worked together and protected each other. For the toplins, this was the first time they had been treated as an equal. 2 weeks later, Desiree stood up on the newly constructed stage that would be used for village meetings. We have all worked hard for the past 2 weeks. While there is still more to do, we can now slow down slightly. I will be taking a group of toplins with me to a dungeon north of here. It is where Ointera and the rest reached their current level. I plan to get all of you to level 10 before moving to the next dungeon. This way, I can outfit you all with better gear. So, for now, we will do a lottery of who will go with me. We will set out tomorrow. Evolution currently. Desiree was standing outside the boss room in the secluded cave. To her right was Juna, and to her left was Ointera. She figured having one more high level to help with this would make things go smoother. Luckily she did, since one of the toplins almost died on the way here. Juna, I will be honest with you. We have yet to fight the boss. The last time we came here, a man appeared here instead of the boss. So we never got to fight the boss. While you all have leveled up to level 8 and 9, it is still very dangerous to face this boss. If you do not want to risk it, we will turn back. I will come back with Ointera and the other pigmen and try to fight the boss first, so we have a better understanding of its quirks. Desiree wanted to give Juna a choice. She could risk it and try to fight the snake, or they can turn back now and return to the village. We will go. My Toblin race is not so weak that they will back down from a challenge. Juna held the staff they had looted from a treasure chest in her hand firmly. She did not want to be looked down upon anymore. All right. Then we will go in. Desiree was actually quite curious as to what this boss looked like. It was named the Vanishing King, so she was sure it had some kind of movement or invisibility skill. When Desiree pushed the door open and stepped inside with the others, the room began to light up. In the center lay a large black-scaled snake with 3 horns on its head that were positioned in such a way and shaped oddly, giving one the impression on first look that it was wearing a crown. I saw. Boss, Vanishing King level, 13 monster rank, DHP 2,870 MP, 765. A rank D monster. Desiree frowned. She still had no idea how these rank things worked, but it seemed that out of everyone here, only she had a rank, and she was rank F. This boss was 2 ranks higher and had much more health than her. Tara, the 2 of us will start the fight. You will wait for my signal to attack. Just in case, keep an eye on the ground for any strangeness. If you see a spot glowing under your feet, do not stand there and quickly move. Desiree gave out her orders to Ointera before turning to Juna and the rest. You all will wait for my signal. But watch closely to the monster's attacks and how Ointera and Also, if you see anything glowing under your feet or any kind of discoloration with the ground under you, quickly move out of the way. You will only have a few seconds to react. If you get hit by a spell or attack, myself and Ointera will not be able to save you. Don't worry, boss, just concentrate on the fight. If we are unable to move, then that just means that was how far our journey to gain power was meant to go. Juna knew her people were very grateful. They were the most powerful people in their entire clan. Their race could finally hold their heads high and not worry about being squashed by many races. So even if a few of them died here, it was for a cause that they had never dreamt would be possible. No dying. Just react, Desiree stated firmly. She did not want to lose anyone. She took a deep breath and looked at Ointera. He nodded, and the 2 rushed in. As soon as they crossed the first pillar, the doors to the boss room slammed shut, locking them in. It was now live or die. Ointera, I will go in first. Hold back until I signal. Desiree gave out another order before drawing her bow and letting loose an arrow. This was a normal arrow. It was nothing more than to get the boss's attention on her, while Ointera got into position. The arrow flew through the air and slammed into the side of the sleeping boss's head. A clanging sound that sounded like metal on metal was heard, followed by the sound of a very angered roar. Eroar! The boss let out a mighty roar. It was a snake, but it seemed to be evolving into a new kind of monster. She ran right up to the boss and fired off a few ice arrows to distract it while she went in for a melee attack. Her claws created sparks as the boss reared up and roared in pain. Her ice arrows slammed into its left eye, causing it some damage. Her claws barely scratched the scales of the snake, causing her to frown. How does a snake have such hard scales that a dragon can't even cut through them? Desiree pursed her scaly lips as she continued her onslaught. She would use ice arrows to blind it, causing it a bit of damage while she attacked with her claws, looking for the soft spot just under its belly. Desiree had not even noticed that she was attacking so fast and hard that the health bar of the boss was actually quickly shrinking. Oimtera and the rest stared at Desiree with eyes filled with worship. Their boss was soloing the dungeon boss. Their boss was the better boss. Oimtera now. Desiree finally realized she had already cut the boss's health in half. She was using a method that seemed to keep the boss from being able to attack at all, which would interrupt the boss's ability to see any targets. Oimtera quickly snapped out of his daze and charged in. His spear was made with the boss's body parts, so it was easily doing damage. Although, it was nowhere close to the amount of damage Desiree was doing. Oimtera did not wish to be left behind, so he sped up his attacks, searching for the weakest point on the boss. The boss that originally had only 2,870 HP was now down to 1,134 HP. Boss, I think they can join now. Go. Oimtera, back off. Desiree had looked over to see the boss's tail starting to turn into a black fog. It was slowly moving up the boss's body. Wow. Oimtera felt something was very off as he quickly jumped back and out of the way. The spot where he was standing suddenly cracked open and parts of the stone floor were sent in all directions. The name Vanishing King actually holds meaning. Desiree gritted her teeth. She should have foreseen that the boss would pull something off. Now that it had turned into a black fog, she had no choice but to wait out its attack timer, if it had one. But what made her a little annoyed was that it was still attacking her, so she could not move from her spot and could only rely on her senses to dodge its attacks. Oimtera quickly retreated to where Juna and the others were. His job was to help make sure they stayed alive. Juna had a worried look on her face as she watched Desiree struggling with a boss she could not even attack. Will boss be okay? Boss is a dragon? Of course, she will be okay. Oimtera had a strong trust in Desiree. It was to the point that if he had a statue of Desiree, he would worship it every day. Juna felt a little more at ease hearing Oimtera's confidence, although she had no idea where he got this confidence. But she had seen what Desiree could do, so she chose to believe that Desiree would pull through. While the others watched with worried expressions, Desiree was busy dodging an attack after attack. The boss was slamming its tail and swiping it back and forth. If she did not sense the change in the wind, she would have long been beaten black and blue. Because in front of her was nothing but a black fog, she could not even make out the outline of the boss anymore. It just looked like a fog and nothing more. This is so annoying. Desiree couldn't help but complain as she took a deep breath. Ice breath. She jumped up into the air, flapping her wings to give herself a bit of hang time as she let loose a stream of ice breath at the floor and onto the black fog. The black fog seemed to be freezing over as the particles of water within it began to freeze under Desiree's ice breath. A roar filled the air as the boss suddenly reappeared. It was covered in ice and looked very sluggish. It seemed Desiree's ice did not just cover the outside of its body, but the inside as well. Boss, Vanishing King level, 13 monster rank, DHP, 102,870 MP, 234,765. Looks like that was a critical hit. Juna, come and attack. Oimtera, protect them. Desiree wanted to give the last hit to the Toblins. If she knew the first half of the battle was the easiest part, she would have allowed them to attack sooner. Juna raised her spear and rushed forward with her kin and began attacking the boss with everything she had. Oimtera did not attack, and only waited for the last of the boss's health to deplete. You defeated, boss. Vanishing King experience points gained. Level up! Level up! Desiree saw the notification that the boss had been killed and smiled as she watched the body disappear, leaving behind a pile of treasure and materials. Desiree walked over and looked at the loot as she said, "That was a bit insane, but luckily, I now know what to do." Desiree was also surprised that she got to levels out of the deal as well. She could only guess that she must have been close to level 16 to be able to hit level 17 on the boss from level 15. Boss, there is another chest armor piece here. Ointera pointed at the chest armor on the ground. It was the same one Desiree was currently wearing. It's yours. Go and take it. We will farm this dungeon and get everyone these chest pieces, or whatever else might drop from this boss. The stats are better than anything I can make at this time. Desiree put all the materials and money into her inventory and looked at Juna and the rest, and gave them a scaly smile. You all did great, and each of you has leveled up by leaps and bounds. Juna, you will keep coming with Ointera and me as we level up your kin. Once we have gotten everyone of level, we will take turns farming for materials here and get ready for the next dungeon. Even if the experience gets slow, at least we can all be ready for what is to come. Desiree had decided. Since they could easily run this dungeon many times, they might as well make use of this dungeon to get better gear and a level or two more each run. This way, they could start using materials that were below the blue quality to make things like blankets and other tools. Another week passed, and everyone in the village had already been outfitted in blue gear. Desiree was with Juna, Ointera, and the other pigmen, and was fighting the boss one last time in this dungeon. Mainly because after so many boss kills, Desiree was about to hit level 20. After she hit level 17, it took her almost 4 boss kills to hit level 18 and then 6 more kills to hit level 19. She was now on her 8th boss kill after farming the dungeon all day. Ointera, if I start evolving right away, you need to stand guard. Don't worry, boss. I will be sure to protect you with my little Oink life. Ointera would make sure no one could touch his boss. He was now level 17. He would never have gotten this far if not for his boss carrying him all the way and paving the way for him to actually dream of becoming powerful. Boss, we all will protect you, no matter what. Juna's eyes now looked at Desiree, as if she was a goddess. She was now level 15, and was the most powerful Toblin her tribe ever had. She wondered if she would be able to become a Yoblin when she finally evolved. I am relying on you both. Desiree smiled as she turned and smacked the boss snake with her claws, sending it flying into the dungeon wall. It turned into balls of light, leaving behind a pile of treasure. The magic words appeared in front of Desiree, causing her to feel very excited. Level 20. You have reached the requirements for evolution. Would you like to evolve now? Yes. No. Desiree took a deep breath before sitting down. I will now begin my evolution. Send someone back to the village if it takes more than a few hours. Understood, boss. Ointera knew that people would be worried if they did not return by dark. Desiree took a quick look at her stats. Name, Desiree Harris. Race, struggling age, 14 level, 20 monster rank. F evolution requirements, reach level 20 HP, 3,245, 3,245, MP, 201, 2,200 1, 2, ice, immunity, LVL max, appraisal, Ian Snow, LL2. Professions weapon crafting, 3 counting, A, 3 hunting, L, the foraging, O, pass 3 cooking, girth 3. Ga. She now had 46 status points. She did not spend any points just in case she needed them after she evolved. After checking her stats, she closed her menu and then took a deep breath. She reached out with her claw and poked the yes button. Desiree suddenly felt like she was being pulled by some mysterious force, but she could tell she was not moving at all. Before she could figure out what was going on, she passed out. Evolution system started. Finding evolution paths found. Waking host's consciousness. Waking successful. Desiree felt like the world around her was slightly hazy. She was in a white space with nothing around her. Please select evolution path. A notification popped up in front of her. She realized this must be part of the system. 3 choices appeared under the last message. Dragon, young ice dragon, Draken Lisa. Desiree sighed. She had no idea what a dragon was, nor did she know what a draken was. They did not even give an explanation. Are they doing this to make fun of me? Either way, she had already invested herself in ice magic, so she would have gone with young ice dragon anyways. She reached up and poked the young ice dragon button. Not even a second passed, and she passed out once more. Evolution path chosen. System error. Finding solution. Adjusting DNA structure. Adjustment completed. New race combination. Changing young ice dragon to young ice dragon goddess. Unlocking goddess parameters. System error. Forcefully downgrading realm to mortal. Goddess status activated. New requirements per evolution added. Evolution will now commence. While Desiree was evolving, Ointera and Juna had worried looks on their faces. Brother Ointera, will Boss be okay? Boss has never failed us. We can only believe in her, Ointera replied. He had never seen anyone evolve before, so he was unsure of how it worked. But no matter what, he would believe in his boss. Juna could only nod and watch on as time ticked by. After 2 hours, Ointera sent someone back to the village to tell them that they were okay. After almost 5 hours passed, Ointera suddenly felt like the room was starting to get very cold. Juna, is it just me, or is it cold in here? Ointera let out a puff of white mist from his mouth. When he looked over at Juna, he saw her huddling up with one of her female guards. So he was sure he was not imagining things. He turned to the swirling mana not far from them, and felt that it had grown exceptionally small and seemed to be turning an ice blue color. Right before his eyes, he saw the mana suddenly get sucked into the dome all at once, before suddenly bursting out in all directions. He covered his face to protect it from the sudden shock wave of mana. When he uncovered them again, he was met with a humanoid figure floating in the air with her eyes closed. White hair, as white as snow. Blue horns that looked like they were carved from deep blue ice. Blue scales covered her private parts and parts of her arms and legs. Beautiful round face with pearly white skin. On her back were 2 wings that seemed to be made of ice as well. And down further was a blue-scaled tail that gently swayed back and forth. Slowly the figure's eyes opened and blinked a few times. She looked around and met eyes with Ointera and smiled. I seem to have finished my evolution. Ointera's mouth opened so wide he could hit an entire grey back in it. He was in utter shock. The person before him was his boss. This evolution was too huge. The change was much different from what he had expected. Desiree looked down at herself and saw that she was standing there without any clothing on, but this did not seem to bother her in the slightest. Mainly because everything that needed to be covered up was covered up. Even the bottom of her feet was covered in scales protecting them from harm from the rocky dungeon floor. She looked at her hands and gripped her fists and smiled. Her ice-blue eyes shined brightly when she felt the strength within her. Not bad at all. Desiree smiled. She opened her menu and looked at her inventory. She saw that all the armor she had been wearing before had been unequipped. She equipped them before opening her status menu to see what her stats were at now. Luckily, thanks to the equipment window, even if the original items were made smaller, they magically became big enough and fit her perfectly. It was just now her original shorts showed a great deal of her thighs. However, they were partially covered in ice blue scales. When she finally looked at her stats, her eyes widened. The stats in front of her were 10 times more than she had ever expected. Name: Desiree Harris. Race: Ice Dragon Goddess. Current realm: Mortal. Age: 18. Level: 20. Monster rank: E. Realm Advanced Requirements: Reach level 50. Kill 1,000 enemies. Raise your affinity with ice to 70%. Create a domain with 10,000 followers. Evolution requirements: reach level 100. Kill 2 demigods. Complete 3 level 100 dungeons. Solo HP 4,567. 4,567. MP 3,289. 3,289. Elemental affinity: ice 20. Immunity: EVL max. Healing snow: L5. Partial transformation: LVL max. Full transformation: LVL max. ID twice. Goddess skills: A frozen step, woven step. Goddess skills: A frozen step, 1. Professions: 2 weapon, crafting, K armor. 3. Hunting. But what confused her the most were the new things. Ice Dragon Goddess. Goddess. Desiree tilted her head to the side. She did not seem to understand why she had suddenly become a goddess. She had only chosen to become an ice dragon. Current realm is mortal. Age 18, level 20. Why did I suddenly age 4 years? Desiree felt slightly depressed. She sighed and continued looking at her stats. She went to sit on the floor, but paused when Ointera suddenly yelled out, "Boss, watch out!" Desiree paused and looked down. Right in the spot she was about to sit was a sharp, pointy rock sticking up. It seemed to be egging her on, asking her to take a seat if she had the guts. Desiree frowned and waved her hand. A large chair made of ice appeared under Desiree. She sat down on it and crossed her legs up under her. She could have sworn she had read a story once about a dragon girl who had made enemies with all rocks in every realm. So I'm ranky now and have 2 requirements? When she looked at the hefty requirements, her eyes dimmed slightly. It was not that she was unwilling to reach them, it was just that they were asking for a lot. Her elemental affinity also now had a status on it. She only had a 20% affinity, and in order to get to the next realm, she had to raise it by 50%. Just reading through the requirements of both her evolution and realm requirements made her want to cry. As her gaze fell on her skills, she suddenly looked down at the ice chair under her and realized that she had created this chair without much thought, but it was actually due to her new ice manipulation skill. She had instinctively created it without realizing it. Besides ice manipulation, I also got partial and full transformation. I guess this is for my dragon forms. All my skills that deal with ice are also at level 5 as well, which is good. But goddess skills? She wrinkled her brow and looked at the 2 spells under it. Frozen Step lets me create frozen footholds on any surface. I can even create them in the air, but they will only last a few seconds while in the mortal realm. Desiree pondered for a moment and sighed. While it was maxed out, she still had to be in a higher realm to use it properly. However, its current state could help her in a fight or escape. She scratched her head and looked at the other skill. Absolute 0. Passive and active. Passive always generates an area of cold air around you. When activated, it turns everything in a 100-foot radius into ice. At level 1, this can only be used once a day. At level 10 in the mortal realm, it can be used 5 times a day. My guess is when I get out of the mortal realm, I can use it even more than that. Boss? Omtera wondered if there was something wrong with his boss. She kept talking to herself. He did not know if her evolution made her brain messed up. Desiree snapped out of her thoughts and looked at Omtera with a questioning gaze. What's wrong? Nothing. Omtera did not dare ask if her brain was right. He did not wish to die. So he decided to change the subject. So, boss, how was it? The evolution process? Desiree thought for a moment before saying, I do not remember any pain, so I do not think you will have any issues. However, there was a choice selection, which gives you no details about the evolution path you can take. So be careful picking. You do not want to suddenly become an ant or something. I think an ant fits him well, Juna teased. Omtera snorted and shook his butt at her, causing everyone to laugh. Desiree smiled and said, Since we are done here, we should head back. I'm sure the others are worried about us. On the way back, Desiree told them about her next evolution requirements, which Omtera found strange. From what I know, the second evolution should have been at level 40. It is done every 20 levels. I do not know either. But I think my evolution path is a bit special. Desiree did not reveal that she had some kind of god race now. She really did not know what to make of this. But what she did know was that she was a bit disappointed in her chest area. She was supposed to be 18 years old now, but her poor chest had only grown a small amount since her previous human form. Desiree let out a long sigh as she continued walking to camp. When they arrived, all the pigmen and toblins stared at Desiree in shock. But once Omtera yelled at them, they all began running around to get set up to hold a big celebration. Their boss had evolved. It called for a huge celebration. On the floating island that had long departed from where Desiree was currently located, Ricky was sitting on a tall rock wall looking out into the forest. During this time, Ricky and the kids had secured a large area for themselves and built a wall. They even had a water source, so they only needed to provide food. Harris, dinner is ready. Becky had a plate of food in her hand. Everyone was now level 8. They had worked hard and cleared out the orcs, and even secured a decent amount of monster meat. Ricky turned around to see the young girl smiling back up at him. Her white, scaly face seemed to have a tinge of pink in her cheeks. She held the plate and slowly made her way up the ladder they had built to get to the top of the wall and placed it down next to him. Hey, Becky, you have been with Dessa since you were little. What do you think she is doing right now? Knowing her, she is probably already high level. She has always been one to push forward. She would do what she needed to do to get up to us. And that would mean leveling up. Daisy is strong-minded, so you do not need to worry about her. Becky could only sigh. She hoped her best friend was okay. You, and Mike had already put their human lives behind them. They were looking toward the future now, but she had a problem. The man next to her was her first love, and even to this day she still loved him. But she had to hide it in her heart since this man was her best friend's father. She could not rightfully ask her best friend to call her mom. That is true. Ricky sighed. He never stopped worrying about his daughter. He could only hope she was safe and sound. Tomorrow, we will spread out a bit more and see if we can map out the region. We need to see what is out there now that things have changed. If we find any orc or goblin camps nearby, we will need to get rid of them as well. But only if our levels are even or higher than what we encounter. Otherwise, we will run. If it is just a single monster that is a few levels higher, then we can take it on in a group. But we must be careful no matter what. I will let the others know. Mr. Harris, are we going to always stick together? Becky asked. She felt shy asking this, but she really wanted to know. We are all one family now. If we do not stick together and protect each other, then who will? Ricky had taken these kids as his own. As an adult, he felt responsible for them. He would protect them no matter what. Becky couldn't help but pout a little. She understood the meaning of his words, but she also felt slightly relieved. She would not need to part with Ricky anytime soon. Back at Desiree's camp. Choo. Desiree rubbed her nose and frowned slightly. Is Becky hitting on my dad again? Boss? You sick? Ointera asked. His entire face was covered in grease. In his hand was an earth boar leg. He was basically eating a close cousin. No. I think a little vixen is trying to wiggle her way into my backyard. Desiree sighed. She had long known Becky's feelings for her father, but she would never allow it. She could see Becky's smug expression now as she stood in front of her with her arms crossed in front of her chest, saying, "Come on, call me mother." A cult?